Hi, my name is Kennedy Griffin, and today I'm going to be presenting over the research that I've done of diversity in computer science. First, I'd like to share my interest in researching this topic. I'm actually a senior at K-State University, and I'm majoring in computer science. So first of all, being a woman entering college, I thought I was going to be a teacher and quickly switched to computer science. I had actually never heard of programming before, but my expectations were that computer science classrooms were going to look like basically the rest of the world, what other classrooms look like. But there were very, very big differences. And most of my classrooms, I could count how many people looked like me that were white women sitting around me, or even women in general, on one hand, so 5 or less. And I could also count the people of color in each classroom on one hand. There have been very few of both of those. And so, when put into groups, oftentimes there wasn't someone that looked like me, or if there were, it was a very rare occasion. But overall, there was very low diversity. This actually transcended college and goes into the workforce. When I have visited different software companies as well as interned at software companies, you still see this lack of women and lack of people of color that are doing software engineering and that are computer scientists. And lastly, something that I saw is that women continuously leave the computer science major. A lot of my friends have left the major, and now that I'm a TA for a lower level CS course, I see that a lot of women also still are leaving the major. So the next thing is expectations of what I would find. The first thing I wanted to find is what the big picture trends were. I, of course, knew my experiences and have talked to a few people around me, but I wanted to know statistically what women and people of color represented in computer science, what numbers they represented, and overall what population they represented. Secondly, I wanted to look at others' experiences. I know my experience and a few others, but I really wanted to focus on people of color's experiences, as well as other women who have experienced similar things to me. I wanted to kind of connect where the gaps of where they didn't feel welcome or things that they were going through as computer scientists. Thirdly, I wanted to find some root causes. At some point, this starts as we see it start at a very young age that people of color and women aren't interested in computer science. And lastly, I wanted to find a possible solution. I wanted to figure out what we could implement that would fix this issue. So first, let's look at trends in other students' experiences. The trend on a large scale is the same as I have witnessed in my classes. For every one woman who graduates with a bachelor's degree in computer science, 4 men graduate with a bachelor's degree in computer science. That's a very big difference. The diversity is also, or the statistics are also very low for minorities, specifically African American students. For minorities overall, they range in about the 10 to 12% ratio that make up people who graduate with CS degrees. But specifically, while African Americans make up about 9% of all degrees earned, they actually only make up about 3% of all computer science degrees earned. So that's a very, very big difference. I also found that other people's experiences are very similar to mine. They quickly realize that people in computer science don't look like them and that they're going to have to be put in uncomfortable situations where there's not going to be anyone that looks like them, and they're definitely going to stand out. There's also a big lack of role models for people who look like me, as well as people of color in computer science. Next, let's look at the root causes. The first one is stereotypes of who a computer scientist is and what they look like. Shows like Silicon Valley, or even household names like Mark Zuckerberg, or even commercials that we see on TV represent computer scientists as mainly white males. And so, because of that, that is kind of the image that we get ingrained into our mind. And so, it becomes a barrier for people who do not look like that to actually be interested or become a computer scientist. Secondly, resources are a big factor. Not only educational resources, but also people who live in impoverished areas, um, which a lot of times are schools that are mainly made up of people or students of color, don't have resources outside of school to actually be able to be interested in computer science or access education about it, or even be able to use their technology in an applicable way to get better at computer science or know what it is. Thirdly, K through 12 education is a big part of the issue. If we could do all of these different things in our school systems, it would resolve a lot of issues. So overall, there's not core educational values or standards for K through 12 education. It's not mandatory. Only about 9 states really have made the push for computer science for secondary and primary education. And lastly, there's no presence of identity politics in computer science. In computer science, we learn programming, we learn ethics, we learn things like that, but identity is never brought up. We never talk about, what identities are lacking in computer science and what that actually changes about our field. Next, here are some possible solutions. The first thing I'd like to mention is there are actually a lot of different methods, and there's been a lot of different trials and research that's been done to try to implement different ideologies about what should be done. But overall, there is not a true result of things that have really shown to improve retention or even bringing students to be interested in computer science. But first of all, the possible solution is improving K-12 education specifically for computer science and including more resources, especially in underserved areas that could really benefit from having those resources and sparking interest in computer science. Although this is kind of the biggest bill to foot, it should be a primary way we should fix computer science. Secondly, speaking about identity in computer science is a big one. He's speaking of the importance of having different identities in computer science and also pointing at the fact that there is a diversity issue is very important. And lastly, intervention of faculty to support students. For me, the main way I see this is for teachers or advisors to sit down with students, ask how they're doing, ask if they need a role model or a mentor to lead them, how they feel uncomfortable, and how to navigate this area. The longer that we prevent and continue with the barriers to lock out people of color and women to computer science, the more that we have this lack of role models and this issue. So it really is going to take some intervention from outside sources to really support students and help them get through these barriers. So in conclusion, issues in computer science are ingrained and widespread. Over the last 20 years, the statistics have declined for diversity in computer science, which is very odd looking at the history of computer science and how women and women of color and people of color have really been involved in building computer science as a whole. Secondly, the US has done very little to improve diversity in computer science, even though it's very important. A lot of people admit that computer science is important and that there are a shortage of computer scientists, but very little has been done to actually improve it. And also, there's not a consensus on what may increase diversity. There's no one that has shown that what they've done has really improved overall and would work on a wide, very nationwide scale. So therefore, there isn't like a go-to solution that would work. That's all. Thank you.